February 24th. Um, Please turn off your cell phones. We have a full council present. And if you please stand and for the pledge, Councilmember Luke Arbizo will lead us in the pledge, and Pastor Lori from the First United Methodist Church will do the invocation. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Pastor Leslie McGowan. I'm sorry about that. Look like Lori. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for having me here tonight. Let us pray. Gracious and wise Creator, we come before you today as your humble servants of this city, seeking your guidance, your wisdom, and your strength as we gather to serve the people and needs of this, our community in Safford, Arizona. Let all that we do and the decisions that we make here today reflect that. May our words be filled with respect, our actions be just, and all of our decisions be rooted in fairness and integrity. Bless these, our leaders, with discernment to make choices that uplift all people, especially those most in need. And grant us patience in our discussions, courage in our convictions, and unity in our purpose to work for the common good. May our city of Safford be a place of peace, opportunity, and prosperity for all who call it their home. Let us never lose sight of the trust placed in us, and may we govern with hearts devoted to service and justice. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Any comments on agenda items?
No.
Non-agenda items? No.
No, sir.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 17, presentation. Mayor Jason Couts, Park Complex. Lance, please.
Moment to recognize the attendance of Graham County Board Supervisor Paul David.
Welcome, Paul.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to stand up here and thank you all, first of all, for the last meeting and getting a name for our Mayor Jason Couts Park Complex. We've got Rebecca Field and Kevin Payne with our consulting firm, Kimley Horn, here to do a presentation on where we're at. We spent most of the afternoon with them today. We're going through 90% design plans, so we're getting very close on the final design. They're going to update you on a few of the things that we've changed a little bit and got more design done on since the last meeting that we had a presentation on. And then we can ask questions either during or after the presentation, and hopefully we can answer them all for you. So I'll turn the time over to Rebecca and Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. We're really excited to give you some updates on the progress of our park, Mayor Jason Coates Park Complex. So we are very, very happy that we have a name now that we can incorporate in all of our plan sets. So we're going to go over the progress that we've made thus far since our last discussion. We're going to talk about a few of the amenity updates to the park, and then we're going to go over next steps, which includes a schedule. So a big accomplishment is that our sewer plans are complete. You may have noticed if you've driven by the site, there is some construction going on in the area. We do have that underway. And if you flip to the next slide, the schedule has been outlined in the screen. I know it's hard to see, but the completion date is May of 2025. So we are moving towards installing the sewer, which is going to be the base for when we start moving the park forward as well. Our park plans are 90% complete, and as Lance mentioned, we just went through a whole review session with city staff going over comments that we had received on the 90% submittal. So we'll be taking those edits and updating the plans accordingly. But we are still within that budget of 7.8 million. So we are very mindful of your total budget that's been set. There are a few amenity updates that I wanted to highlight. So one of those is the band shell. If you recall from our last discussion, we are still in the early stages of figuring out what that footprint was going to look like. What you see on your screen there is an example of where the band shell is placed within the amphitheater space, and then a little bit of a zoom in of what that structure looks like. So we'll have a ramp on one side, stairs on the other side, and then we have 2 changing rooms in the back and some storage facilities as well. If you flip to the next slide. This is a little bit of a blow up so you can see some of the dimensions. This is a pretty large structure. We have a 30-foot wide stage area. So we have lots of room for some great events that will happen there in the future. And again, we have ample storage. We'll have electricity, lots of outlets in place. We talked about that today as far as what kind of amenities that you'd like to see in this area. But we'll have outlets. We'll have the ability to have stage lights from performers that come in, and then have it pretty flexible for multiple kinds of uses in the area. If you flip to the next slide, you'll see what the exterior looks like. So we are combining a exposed block with a stacked stone decorative edge to it. That's going to be the same treatment that we're having on our restroom buildings as well. So there's going to be a consistency throughout the park. We are looking at that truss design for the stage overhang. That is intended to be steel. It's not going to be wood, but it's going to be looking like wood. So we know that there's some maintenance concerns with wood, but we're showing a steel rafter structure that mimics wood along with those different natural materials. So we think that's going to be a really nice look for the park. If we run to the next slide, we have another opportunity here with our park name to have a really nice entry monument opportunity. So one of the things that we haven't gone into yet is looking at what an entry monument might be for this park site. So what I'm showing there in the image is a location of where the entry monument is. It's right as you come in off of 8th Avenue. We are pairing that with a flagpole, so there will be an opportunity to have an entry monument and a flagpole. And right now the design is to be determined, and we'd love your input on that. We could also get community input if you'd like, but we have a few examples of what that could look like as far as different types of monument signs with the natural stone materials. We could do a steel look to it, or the large boulder feature as well. So these are just some examples, but we're excited to start moving this forward and highlighting our park and our name. So any comments on the monuments while we're on this slide? Or any preferences on appearance?
I prefer not the boulder, personally.
Okay.
Something a little more, I don't know what the word would be.
A little more formal, maybe? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, these are again, we are just getting into the design of this, so we'd love to get as much feedback as we can. So that's great. We're looking at, again, for the structures throughout the park, that exposed block, and then also the stacked stone. So that's where we are suggesting kind of in that theme or in that kind of visual family, but we are open to other ideas and thoughts. So thank you for that feedback.
Kind of like the one on
Go ahead.
the one on the bottom right.
Uh-huh.
It looks like something that doesn't invite kids to climb on it and fall off and get hurt. Whereas the top one looks like there's steps that they could be climbing up on and getting hurt.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, the bottom right one is very clean. It's a kind of a classic look. It still has the stacked stone that will tie into the buildings, but it's a more simple structure. So
When do you have to have your answer?
this is one of those pieces that is we'll say it can be a separate piece to the park. We were hoping to have it be part of our bid set. It could be one of our alternates, though, depending on how costs turn out for it. But we would love to have your feedback, I would say, within the next month or so, if possible. And then our intent, and we can flip to the next slide because we do show our schedule here moving forward. So we are looking for final park plan submittal in April of 2025, so just in a couple months.
Would you be able to give us a kind of a ballpark figure of what those signs would be, the cost
Sure.
of them?
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be nice.
So I can give you guys that, and I can also, you have the presentation, I believe, so you have those images. If there's any other suggestions that you have or any other thoughts you have, we'll be glad to take those, and then we can incorporate them into our final park plan set there in April. Sewer construction, as I mentioned, is ongoing, but it will be complete by May 2025, which is a very good timing for park plan bidding and award because we'll be starting that bidding process in April. The sewer contractor will be offsite in May. We'll have the award happening through June and then construction beginning for the park in July 2025. The park's timeframe for construction is roughly 12 to 15 months. So that puts us into 2026, summer of 2026 or early fall. So that is where we're heading with the park. And we are, again, as Lance mentioned, we've gone through a lot of different comments and are working on incorporating those to make sure that all the details are worked out so that we can have a smooth construction process.
Anybody comment?
Just a quick one, Mayor, just an apology for my first comment. I was in work session mode. I just kind of jumped in and interrupted. I didn't even, in my mind, we were in work session for some reason.
Well, I'm hoping the acoustics will be good on that stage because I believe Council Hempfield will be doing some acoustic singing out there.
Sure,
Okay.
plan it.
We talked about what size receptacles we're going to have there. We want to make sure we have the right size for the equipment. I think it was 50 amp. So yeah, we're getting into the details now, which I know there had been questions early in this about where are the outlets and how are we having the lights. All of that is shown on the plans. It is a big plan set. It's over 100 pages, so they are available if you want to flip through there, but there are all the light locations. We're lighting the ramadas. We have nice lighting in even the lawn areas as well, so you'll be able to use those after dark. We have all the details shown on where all the different outlets and electrical features are.
And the storage is for the activities at the park, not for lawnmowers and things like that?
In the band shell, yes. So that storage is for activities at the park. It's not intended to be like a maintenance storage
Make sure that
area.
gets in the minutes, B.
Yeah, we do not have a maintenance storage yard on site.
Not there, okay.
Any other comments, questions?
Jobs of them, but I'm not gonna stay here all night.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and close meeting and reconvene into a work session. The work session will be a review of proposed updated Stafford water system, administrative guidelines, and policies. Jason.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As it says on our CCF, this is our second take at this. Tonight, we're going to be reviewing our fee schedule and our curtailment plan. Just do a quick review. So currently, the city manages our system through code and ordinance. As we know, as we discussed this 2 weeks ago, our city code is only enforceable to those who live within our city jurisdiction. And so we're looking to change our process so that we can ensure that we're able to manage all of our customers in all jurisdictions. And we're going to do that through these policies and regulations that will then be adopted. So tonight we're going to go through our fee schedule changes and then curtailment around the customer limited water use or penalties. So as it says here in our presentation, there is no changes in our fee schedule at this time. All we're doing is incorporating this as an independent document. Um, As everyone knows, we're in the middle of a rate study right now. At that point in time, when that's completed, we bring that to the council. Those changes will be incorporated after your approval, and at that point in time, our fee schedule will change, all the requirements that go with that as far as public notification. But for tonight and for this process, there's no changes to our fees.
Mr. Brimhall.
Go ahead.
Still on 16. The adoption of policies and regulations. Policies can't be changed by the administration, only by us. Okay, and so guidelines and anything else can be changed by the administration?
So just through our normal processes, there's going to be certain small details that are going to be taken care of through our normal routine process. Anything that's going to be large or have any kind of impact to the communities, it's always going to be brought to the council for review.
So maybe yes. Okay, sir. That one. That one.
So after our fee schedule review, we're going to jump into our curtailment plan. I added a couple of slides further in the presentation that shows some of the detailed requirements of the previous curtailment plan. I won't pull those out here at the beginning. If we need to review those in the future, we can. I've got them in here. But I just wanted to highlight some of the changes that we made in this curtailment plan. I think the biggest one is we're basing our curtailment off of our water storage capacity and our safe production. Prior to the previous curtailment plan was based solely on our demand greater than our safe production. And so it didn't take into account any of the capacity that we have in our holding tanks and the lengths of time that affects our customers, whether that's in the winter or summer. Obviously that time frame looks different, but we bring those details and those parameters into our measurements of what that takes to push us through these stages in our curtailment plan. So in our stage 1, we're in our normal operating with no curtailment. In stage 2, this moves us into in our storage capacity, whether it's in our tanks or the production through Bonita Creek or our well production. If we're below 75% of those for 7 consecutive days, then we move into stage 2. In stage 2, the city just encourages our customers to voluntarily employ water conservation measures in their homes and trying to reduce their water consumption by 20%. Within that, the requirement from the city is we'll be contacting them through letter or through their billing process, and then have outreach through our city websites and social media outlets. Will be no enforcement of this stage 2 requirement. It's completely voluntary on our customers' side. We're just asking them to understand the situation we're in and to try and reflect that by reducing their consumption.
Do we have to wait 7 days, or do we have to wait that many days if we know already something's up?
So in stage 3, these don't have to be in consecutive order. We don't have to be in stage 2 for 2 weeks before we can move into stage 3. If there's a catastrophic failure in Bonita Creek, that could push us into stage 3 immediately, where we have a different capacity requirement, storage requirement. And so
That's not set up like a policy that we have to wait.
No.
It's flexible.
nope, completely. It's all based on that storage capacity and production parameters.
And
So if something happens where we drop, moving into the stage 3, if we drop into a place where the 10 million gallon tank has a catastrophic failure and we don't have that storage capacity, we could jump right into our stage 3 because we don't have 50% capacity within our storage systems.
or reading of our pumps, and we're concerned about it.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm still back on 17. Where are you at?
Okay.
Number 3, it says Water Facilities Extension Agreement Development pays for itself. What? I'm not sure what all that means.
So within that, the water facility extension agreement that we reviewed 2 weeks ago, it's really about if there's development, that those developers provide those funds required for the expansion out to them, whether that's additional water requirements, the main extensions to their development internally. So those pay for the developer pays for those
which
extensions.
we're
And
gonna
those.
get.
Yep. Well, we went over that one in our last council meeting, but we have the ability, if you guys want to go back and review that again, we can. But
I think I know it's been maybe a year. I think Mr. Seal came forward on some stuff that we needed to change and get in position. I think I remember it now,
all right.
sir. And the rate are staying the same. If
Yeah,
we change
there's no
them
rate changes at this time at all.
this time, but the study we're undergoing, that qualifies to change them if we need to?
At that point in time, it'll be brought to the city council, and if you guys want to incorporate the suggestions made by our,
Because a study is required to change rates?
no, the
No?
study isn't
Okay.
required. We go to this third party so that all the parameters within those decision-making processes are reviewed specifically for costs that are being incurred to ensure that our CIP projects are covered, our employment requirements, all of those things are taken into account as we move forward through our years. And as we move forward, we haven't had that rate study done since 2017. And so sometimes how that inflationary process and pricing isn't taken into account. So we have these outside studies, so there's a third party reviewing those, and it's not just an internal call out for rates.
Okay, sir, thank you.
So was there any questions around stage 1 or stage 2? As we jump into stage 3, this is where there's significant concern within the water department and within the city as far as our storage and our production. If we don't have that capacity for 2 consecutive days, we're able to move into these restrictions. So the restrictions are requiring our customers to employ water conservation measures to reduce their water consumption by 40%. So again, we put on here what that requires from the city as far as notice. Again, we're going to send out letters. We're going to put things out on the website, out on our social media feeds. And then in stage 3, we'll be posting signs throughout our service areas so that, go ahead. No.
Just as a normal person, how are we gonna know if we are reducing our house by 40%? Because I couldn't tell you how much I use a month, and I couldn't tell you how I could reduce by 40%.
So usually,
Think to help them with that?
yeah, within this document, there's some descriptions of things that you can do as far as outside watering restrictions, as far as limiting what you do with those things. There's another piece that's in here that specifically talks to if you're in the lowest billing rate, none of this will affect you at all. But there's a certain level within your home that you can't drop below, just for sheer usage of human consumption and usage within your home, right? And so that once you get to that point, and looking through the details of these designs, speaking with our water lawyer, these were the prescribed limits that he put in there, the levels that he put in, and are found throughout the state. So it's not an odd percentage requirement as far as it's really going to be difficult unless you're out looking at the meter specifically, and you can look at your previous months, and that's how we'll do it as far as measuring that reduction. Will be really around, go out and look at your meter, see that there's a 40% reduction for the prior period to where we start the curtailment at.
Isn't there an app too that you can use?
There's the city maintains a water app called WaterHawk that allows you to see your usage your last month's usage, your month-to-date usage off of your meter, so you would have visibility to it. That's available now. Not all of our customers use that. I think it's a great opportunity. Obviously, I think there'd be more visibility to it and more people engaged with the process if we moved into this stage.
Jason, also real quick, so if a customer exceeds 60% of their previous water bill in stage 3, they'll have that 40% charge. So, and this is nitpicking, do we want to say approximately 40% on the restriction? Because I'll come in and
You'll argue with
I'll
30,
argue with you
59?
over approximately. Just because that's the kind of person I am. If I'm a customer,
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Council.
yeah,
We'll find that and make sure we get that taken out.
yeah, I don't know if that's
No,
right, but
no,
then,
we want it specific.
well, the enforcement is a threshold, is it not?
Yeah.
So if I curtail by 38% and you try to give me a fee, I'm going to come in and say,
Hey, that's
isn't
approximate.
that approximately 40?
I got you. I'll review that in there and make sure that was just in my
Right,
building of this presentation and not in our
right, not in the
documentation
actual.
specific.
Sure, thanks.
I have a question on the fee
Please.
as well. I didn't see the curtailment fees on the fee schedule. Is that something that does need to be posted? Does it qualify under that fee schedule that it should be added on there and it should be posted for the required amount of time?
So we thought our water lawyer was going to be on. That's definitely a question that we'll review with him tomorrow, and I can follow up with you on that, Councilwoman.
I'm on. This is Bill.
Oh.
I'm on. This is Bill Sims. We've
So
done this
Bill,
before
I
with
don't know
other-
if this is in your realm of responsibility, but I'll leave it to you if you want to speak to it.
This is a statutory requirement and nothing to do with water law. On my other cities, that's a fee and it needs to be posted just like the other fees.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. So really, we brought this forward in our work session mode so that we can continue to have questions. And look at that, I appreciate this input. Did anybody have any other additional comments around stage 3? All right. So stage 4 really is where we jump into the dire. If we have 25% of our storage capacity or production for 24 consecutive hours, I mean, that's a loss of all of Bonita, probably more than half of our well field, or several tanks, including the 10 million gallon tank. So this is really a catastrophic level. And then within that, what would we want to have in our restrictions and what's prohibited as far as activities? Put some very small call outs here: irrigation of outdoor lawns, trees, shrubs, or plant life, washing of vehicles, use of water for dust control, use of construction water other than the non-potable from our treatment plant, and then any water intensive activities specific. So what we really tried to do in this curtailment plan was take things that can't be watched, can't be looked at, can't be reviewed. In the old curtailment plan, it talked about 4 hours a day to have any kind of impact as far as having enforcement around that. And so that's why we decided to go with move forward with usage off of percentages.
Does this also affect the commercial businesses, the car washes, the laundromats, that type of thing also?
And so specifically for this one that we're living in, it's really trying to maintain the minimum life existence here in the Gila Valley. So
And so all of these same restrictions across the board go residential and commercial?
they
Doesn't?
do.
Okay, perfect.
They do at this time, unless you guys want to have it read otherwise. So that's how we have it currently. And then here in our stage 4, which is our final stage, again, we have signs talking about our curtailment. There's letters that are going to be sent out to our customers. And then probably the biggest enforcement pieces here is if we've given written notice and there's a failure to comply with that within 2 days, water will be turned off to the premises. So this really, again, goes back to the point that this is at a curtailment level where it's in a dire straits, and there's not a clear path forward as far as how we're going to get out of it, whether that's pumping, piping, whatever that looks like moving forward. So, and again, in all of these, those that are in the lowest billing tiers, the least usage for around their minimum lifestyle aren't impacted at all. So,
How would you enforce within 2 days? Just
So-
when the billing cycle comes or immediately?
so as Councilman Arbizo talked about, we have the ability to see live where we're at on those water usages, and so if there's not a reduction in usage and it continues as is, then we have that ability to reach out and contact and set those parameters for them.
Jason, do you have even just a guess about what percentage of customers are in the lowest billing tier?
I do not have that
Okay.
off the top of my head.
And you don't need it, that's not something you need to
we can
get
we
back
can get
with.
that information and get it back to you for sure.
It's not crucial to how I feel about it, it was more curious.
Now you got my curiosity pegged, so we'll get that information back to you. So again, we're bringing this for discussion in our work. If you looked at our previous curtailment,
Jason, I hate to do this, but
No,
can
you're
you
good.
slide back? I just thought of something else.
'Kay.
Obviously, if you're in the lowest billing tier, the percentages aren't going to apply to you. But what enforcement will there be if somebody in that lowest billing tier is watering their lawn?
so we still have the ability to write that letter. We still have the ability to go out and
It
restrict
would be
their,
it
their
would be cutting the services at that point. Right. So that would apply to somebody.
we would have that ability to
Right.
enforce it.
Okay.
And again, this goes back to the fact if we were trying to be out there and to enforce this with every individual on whether your lawn's getting watered or not at 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody's like, we'd have to have 30 or 40 enforcement individuals.
And
to
the
do
odds
that
of
for
being
us.
in stage 4 are hopefully quite low.
In our current state, it's hard to come up with a scenario where we get to that level, but
Right.
definitely.
I have a question about, it's not about curtailment, but more about rate structure. Is there a thought or a vehicle to, I don't really know what I want to say, but to give a rate reduction to someone whose sewer water we're getting back and can resell in comparison to someone who's just taking and we don't get that back? Is there any differential between the two or the possibility of one?
So there isn't today. Obviously, we have the ability through this rate structure. We're going to be having sit-down meetings with our consultant, talking about those rate structures and how they can be impacted. That's definitely something we can look at specifically.
I don't see it being a big deal now, but Arizona's going to come down to water.
Yep, I
At
agree with you.
At some point, that may matter. Want to think about it.
It's definitely on our radar as far as what we're looking at and what we're trying to
I mean,
ensure
I think we should be encouraging anyone who gets our water to be sending it back to us so that we can reuse it. But I don't know how you plug that in.
At 25%, do you think that's going to affect any of the fire hydrants? Or any-
with both of those in there, Councilman, Vice Mayor. It could possibly have an effect on them. The capacity within the city to keep our pressures are based on having those tanks filled to certain levels to keep the pressures in our system. And so obviously if we lose 3 or 4 tanks, at that point in time, we're trying to keep our pressure rates probably closer to the minimum level instead of the maximum levels to just try and feed what those individual home needs would look like. You're still going to have water there. You're just not going to have it at 60, 70, 80 PSI.
If we get that low, then we'll have to involve the chief where we don't have no backyard bonfires, no fireworks, things like that. We'll involve the chief then.
For sure. The chief would probably be involved even in our stage 3 as far as just ensuring that we comprehend what those impacts would look like, city and jurisdictional wide.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jason. You get enough info, you feel?
I do. I have some good input. Again, these being our working sessions, we're going to bring this back in our next session as completed documents with some inputted information from last week and then some of our comments from tonight. We also have some legal inputs that'll make some adjustments between Bill and Steve in their review of these documents. So there'll be a few changes in that, but we'll have these back in our next council meeting for our ordinance first read. And then the next week after that, or the 2 weeks after that, we'll be back for our second read of ordinance and then the resolution. So, thank you.
And we'll go ahead and move on to item number 2. It's to discuss the pool fees for 2025. Wait.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Paul Madam here. All right. Tonight I'm before you to request for the Mayor and City Council to conduct a work session to discuss possible new pool fees and changes to past pool fees. The City of Stafford, in approximately 2007, spent $1.8 million to improve the pool facility with the general funds of the city. So general city sales tax dollars and funds from the state to pay for it. No grant funds were in that, just pure city dollars. General fund dollars were spent, $1.8 million. The city operates the pool. This is the lifeguards and the maintenance to the pool, the pumps, and the constant, we keep water in the pool year round. We pump it year round. So someone has to go check those pumps year round, even though the pool only operates for about 2.5 to 3 months of the year. So the cost of running the pool is approximately $250,000 a year. So we spent $1.8 million to build it. It costs about $250,000 a year to run it and maintain it. And the current pool fees cover about $60,000, 62.5% is to our best estimate of those costs. So we get back about 25% of the actual operating cost each year to run the pool. And that provides about 12,000 to 15,000 individual visits to the pool. It could be the same person coming over and over and over. That's not unique individuals, but we believe 12,000 to 15,000 people visit the pool each year. Again, these are all estimates. A lot of our old pool software did not track this, so we have to make a lot of inferences and guesses when it comes to this stuff. But from our financials, we can kind of get some of this information. As the facility ages and the maintenance continue to rise, along with the general operating cost, the fees, the idea of a fee increase is possibly needed in the near future. So for fiscal year 2026, we would like to propose a fee increase going forward. We have new software at the pool as of last year. The last 2 weeks of last year, we implemented a new pool software that can now track between a resident and a non-resident. So we can differentiate and charge 2 different rates for those. So we now have the ability, and these new pool fees you'll see incorporate that idea of a resident and a non-resident fee, but it also incorporates some increase to both residents and definite increases to non-residents. So it all in an effort to maintain the current cost. The fee proposal that we have before you, because we don't have a lot of information, we're hoping to keep that same $62,000 coming into the city. We don't want to decrease the amount of people visiting the pool by making it too expensive, but at the same time, we just want to change the fees and see what effect this would have on this year's pool season. So with that in mind, we'd have a full year of operating the pool with these new rates, and we could better say how much the non-resident fees are affecting the pool and how much the resident fees are affecting the pool, and whether or not we could continue to increase the fees if we saw fit or continue to decrease the fees if we saw fit. Who says 25% is where the city needs to be? No one has ever made that decision, right? So going forward, we want to, as a city and as you as a council, help us make that decision. What is the cost recovery at the pool? Is 25% appropriate? Is it too high, too low? And that's what this work session is for us tonight. So state law, keep in mind, requires that we give 60-day notice prior or notice of intent that we're going to raise a fee and or implement a new fee. So tonight we might be doing both. So this would start the 60-day notice. We're not turning that notice in until the end of this week. So whatever comes out of this work session, we want to take that information and post that out there for citizens of Safford and or anybody in the valley to come and comment on this. We want to gather up all that information for the next 60 days, and we'll act on that information in May. So tonight, we're not really making any decisions short of we want to post what's on the next page here. We want to post these fees and these rate increases as soon as possible so that that 60-day window can start, right? And with that in mind, again, this wouldn't take effect until May 28th. Keep in mind the pool season technically starts at the beginning of May. So some of the fees that we charge the schools for end of year activities, those would not change because we missed that window, right? So these fees would take effect after that. So some of the fees you'll see at the very bottom of this schedule are really proposed for maybe 2027. But I just wanted to get the idea out there and see what you guys thought of that. So with that in mind, I hope you guys have had time to review this one page. We have 23 pages of our fee booklet. So this is just one page of it. Get your comments tonight. I turn my time over to the mayor and council to give me advice or guidance on how we came up with these fees. So I guess before you start there, I can kind of get ahead of some questions. So there were some fees as we went through this schedule that never got used. They were so high, like take, for example, the non-resident or the family swim pass was at $125. No one ever bought a family swim pass. So $125 was a price that no one was willing to pay. So some fees, I had to bring them down to where they might be actually used. So what's the point of having a fee if it's so high? So some of the fees are, the reason being we never used them, so we're trying to bring the fee down and figure out what it takes for people to actually take advantage of that fee. If not, it's just a fee that no one ever uses. Other things that you'll notice in here is swim lessons. A third of your overall $62,000, so you could say $20,000 of what we get at the pool is from swim. So if you don't do anything to swim lessons, that's a third of your revenues that don't change. So we tried to propose a modest fee increase to swim lessons and swim team. But again, not knowing how this would change if what is $10 more per child mean to a family, how many more people wouldn't come to the pool, we don't know. But again, this would be a baseline to get that information out there and see what kind of effects we have on the pool. So with that, I think I've covered any questions that I had in my mind, but I'll turn it over to the council. It is a work session, so you don't need to go through the mayor.
So I see the non-resident swim family entry fee. Is
Yep.
that a one-day thing for $50 a family? And is there a limit on family? We're saying family, but is there a number?
So the non-resident, so you're talking the $5 per person at the top?
No, it's in red.
Yeah. There's a lot in red.
if-
So narrow it down.
Okay, non-resident swim family entry fee.
So
That's all
yeah,
you
that would
got.
be a one-time, if your family came to the pool and you had more than logically 10 people, you would probably want to pay, $50 would be the maximum you'd pay for your family if you were a non-resident and you came to the pool. Think of that as like kind of a maximum.
So we're not setting a limit. I mean, because I have seen where some people have went as a big group for like a birthday party, and instead of paying for the party, it's just a whole big group of everyone going
So
together.
The important thing here is family. We haven't worked out this resident, non-resident fee card, but one of the things that would be on your residency card is possibly all the members of your family. So you couldn't bring the neighbor's kids, you couldn't bring some acquaintances, you couldn't bring cousins. You could just bring your family as part of that swimming. That if they were not related to you, they would be paying a separate fee.
So immediate family.
Immediate family, right?
Thank
Good question. Oh,
You no longer have night swimming?
so that was heavily used. The $1.25 discounted night swim you employ the same number of staff to do the day swim as you do the night swim. So I don't know. I guess this is where I was proposing a modest fee increase and just make it $2 outright for the day. We were also trying to get away from change. We were trying to get into either $1 or $2. So we just thought a $2 fee, regardless of what time of day, is important for a City of Safford resident. That's what we wanted to be clear across the board.
So, because night swim individual is completely scratched out and it doesn't say what you're gonna do about that. What you just said, I don't see where it says any of that.
So you probably wouldn't notice, but in the swim entry fee at the very top, it used to say day swim entry fee. I just got rid of the word day in that. So that $2 per person at the very top takes care of you for the full day, regardless of what time you come.
Now, when parents bring their children and they gotta sit inside the pool, they gotta pay to get in too?
This is a question that we could going forward. Our lifeguards often ask me is it anybody that comes inside? Is it admission into the pool area or is it admission to actually swim? This is a question at most pools, you would probably, it's admission into the pool area. It's hard to monitor people that say they're not going to swim and then they start swimming. So I would say it's admission into the pool, but again, we can clarify that going forward as far as our operational procedures. Can you come in as a family member just to watch your kids and not swim? And is there a fee associated with that? Currently, we do not charge for that type of stuff.
But on heavy use days, you only have a certain amount of occupancy,
Correct.
so it might affect that.
Correct. We believe that throwing in these non-resident fees would make the pool more exclusively used by City of Safford residents. So those capacities wouldn't be as much of a burden as they are now. Less people would be attending overall.
That was the reason they were charging people for. That's what they told them. You're taking up space. I just assumed they didn't pay, but that's going, I have to figure that out.
It comes down to monitoring. And again, I guess we operationally, you let it be known over the next 60 days. Again, if you're getting those kind of comments from your citizens, we'll come up and devise something that can possibly meet your needs and the council's needs overall. So
Where is the pool party the
Great.
pool picnic area? Where is that?
So there's a few ramadas inside the pool area that no one, again, this is a fee that no one has ever used. We don't require you to actually get a reservation. So I didn't change it. We didn't want to take it away. We don't have the staff to go around and police whether or not you had a reservation. So that's more one of those on your honor fees that a lot of times you'll notice that some of these pool parties will actually pay the extra $25 because they want to guarantee that ramada is theirs, and we can definitely enforce that. But it's not often used.
Swim lessons for a family. Here is swim lessons, $50 a person. If you go in there with say you have 3, 4 little kids, that's pretty steep.
$150. It used to be $120.
It's important for them to learn how to swim. Is there anybody have any comments on that? To me, the lessons are important. You have the, I know
So
they are.
I just wanted to say a couple of words. So the fees that the finance directors can come up with are somewhat based on what he sees as usage, and they have a certain randomness to them in some regards, but he's basing it on usage, non-usage. The idea of higher or not high enough, one of the things that we as an organization need to do, and it ties back to some of the conversations that we had about life cycle maintenance and maintaining the facilities, is that I would like to see us put into our budget this year a user fee study. Now, I've done these in other jurisdictions, and what they do is they come in and analyze both the facility and the usage that's ongoing, and they tie your expenditure patterns to your revenue patterns. And what that does is they'll usually do an analysis of various markets, what is the industry standard, but they also will give you an idea of the idea of cost recovery. So this is not a tax. Like a sales tax goes into your general fund, it pays for police, it pays for HR, it pays for all kinds of stuff. This type of activity is more of a user fee based, meaning that you come and use that facility, you pay a fee, a separate fee for a specific use. Ideally, what we would want to do is do a user fee study so that we could tie the cost of running the operation to the fees charged. And what that would allow you to do is then to look at those fees based on the demographic or the cohort that you're applying your cost recovery to. So generally speaking, when you do cost recovery, if you're doing a service for youth, for example, you try to keep your cost recovery numbers lower because you want to see the youth swim and you don't want to price them out of the market. Same thing would apply to senior citizens. If they come and do exercises at the pool, generally you'll give them a relatively steep discount on that service because you want to subsidize that to encourage the use of that facility. Whereas if I show up to play flag football, you're going to say, hey, you guys, you pay full shot. You're working and you're going to. So I think the approach that was taken was in part to give you an idea of what's possible. Non-resident versus resident would be another element of that cost recovery. But to truly look at the facilities we run, whether it be the golf course, the swimming pool, the library, all of those should be analyzed at a higher level. And then using that information also with the market that you're involved in, come up with a cost recovery profile that we would then bring to you that would have really a logic rationale for that recovery. And then you could vote knowing that that analysis had been done where there were some baselines that were used in order to determine what those recovery levels were and what the overall price was. So ideally, I think at some point we want to do that because we get into the idea of we have a pool. Well, I think some of you have had a discussion with us at the pool. Some of those facilities are not where we would like them to be, right? So what does it really cost to get the pool where we want it? And once we've gotten the pool to where we want it, i.e. we've defined the expenditure pattern, then I think we can come back and look at that revenue profile and determine where we want to do more or less subsidizing of those rates. So I guess this is kind of a trial balloon to kind of get council looking at these rates. Now, I know the finance director was eager to get these out because I think the idea was, can we adjust our rates prior to this year's pool season, which would be a good idea, but it may not be ready, to coin a phrase, for prime time. So maybe this gives us a better idea what we would like to do, but I think perhaps the better approach would be to allow this season to go forward under current guidelines that we have, do the analysis in the coming year under a formal, RFP with a consultant, and then come back maybe in the next cycle where we have a little bit more of a rational basis for the fees.
That would have probably been good for Troy to know before tonight.
No, he mentioned it.
I'm teasing you. You could have saved a lot of time. But you would need to do this anyway, eventually, if we're going to take action on it at some point.
Correct.
And part of it, go ahead.
You've hit the numbers pretty good. They look good. The effort here is real good. I don't want to spend $8,000 on a study.
It'll be more than 8.
It'll be more than 8.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and you can go forward and use these. That's fine.
so I don't think what he's got going right now, the way he's trying it and it's going forward, is too bad, really. I know the mayor's talking about swimming lessons, and if anybody else has comments on there, but most of our residents got lowered a little bit. Non-residents got raised up a little bit. You're trying to adjust to everything, and I think it's a good effort you did here on this one.
I think it's a thing to go forward with too.
Yeah,
I
but
do have a suggestion. I would kind of like to see the resident rates be set and then all the non-resident rates just have a straight across the board percent increase. So that, because you see swim entry is $2, but for a non-resident, it's $5. So it's, 150% more. Whereas some of these others, it's only like 50% more for a non-resident rate. So, to be consistent, can we set our resident rates and then just say, this is our base rate, we're going to increase all of the rates on this same percentage.
I think that's where I'm trying to get at utilization. Setting a rate at like $80, if no one uses it, is a pointless rate for me, right? But if someone can use it at 60, then I know that I can raise it maybe 62, or I could raise it to 65. I'm trying to get to a level to where someone will actually use the rate, so then I know it's a valid rate, right? And that's what I don't have right now, is most of our rates, to be honest with you, don't get used. They were set so high that no one would ever use them. So the pool entry fee is your biggest, those first $2 and $5, there is 60% of your revenues right there. But if I can lower these other ones and take advantage of, think of these as like discounts, like you get a discount for bringing so many people to the pool. And we want that. We want more people to come to the pool. We want those visitations to stay at 12 to 15,000 people. But yeah, to set every rate at a certain amount, I just think that sometimes they wouldn't even utilize it. So I have to incentivize you to take a season pass, right? I got to get you to, if you'll come 5 times, you'll pay for your season pass. Those are the kind of things that we want to do for you. Financially, it might not make any sense, but it'll actually get someone to buy it for the first time, which is still a revenue that we didn't have before, right? And maybe in our discussions of non-resident fees, they look at that and say, hey, I can still afford the non-resident season pass because it's a little bit lower than you would expect. Because if I was 150 times higher than what I charge for a family season pass, so I'm $75 for a Safford citizen, I'd be at like at 100 or 190, $200. That might not be but if they'll take it at 100, at least I know I could get someone to use the pass at $100. I see what you're saying, Councilmember Flores. I'd like to see if somebody could actually use some of these fees. And what's appetizing to the consumer? Are they really interested in the season pass, or are we still stuck on the entry fee? It's all about the entry fee. I'd like to get people off the entry fee and see if they can take other things, take advantage of some of those passes and take advantage of that thing, right? It's just the guessing game. Either way, you got to figure out what's people want and what they don't want. And again, we'll have more information. I imagine the same session a year from now, I'll give you, okay, here's how many non-residents visit, here's how many residents visit. If it's not acceptable, how many non-residents visit, let's lower the fee. If it's acceptable, let's raise the fee. But yeah, I got to start giving you that data, and I got to get people to start using these things, and that's what's not happening. I know number 1 and number 2, that's about it.
So maybe for mayor's point of if they have multiple children, maybe we can set something where, if they enroll 2 of their children, they can get a $5 discount. Maybe we can set something like that. So as to the mayor's point, someone with 4 kids, that's going to be pretty expensive. But if they're enrolling more than 2, they can get a $5 discount.
So we don't have to have this settled tonight. If you guys want to go home and think about it, send me an email. I can throw that additional fee in for the next 60 days and people can talk about it, and we'll vote on it on May 20 or April 27th or 28th. So we can still get those things in there. I just need to get them published. So if we're going to offer a multi-family discount for those type of things, just let me know and I can throw that rate in there. Again, I don't even know how many people are going to be affected by my rate increase, so I don't know if a multi-family is really going to turn people away. Sometimes the pool is the only thing to offer families in this valley. So it's a monopoly of sorts.
And you also did away with employee cards.
We didn't talk about the employee cards. It's technically a benefit. So if you want to give me advice on the employee cards tonight, I didn't actually throw it in here.
Well,
There's
yeah,
no
I
talk
thought-
of an employee.
I thought
Currently,
you-
our employees get a free family pass to the pool. If you'd like to change that, this is a great time to talk about that.
Well, I thought you were thinking of it as the same way you were the night swim and nobody used it or something.
So I haven't talked about
You didn't wanna touch
because
it.
those aren't fees for the public, right? That's a fee for an employee. So that's a benefit. We can bring that up as part of the budget process, whether we continue to give that benefit or not. But that's not part of our overall fee schedule here.
Don't know what it cost us. You didn't bring that to us.
I can now tell you the value of such pass by putting a fee to it, $75.
Well, okay,
Last one for me, Troy.
neglected it.
Would we be able to solve the citizen card identification issue
We are working on that.
before this pool season?
We are currently in the thick of it, and we are trying to figure out a solution both virtually and physically. And who would do that? Customer service could be employed for vetting residents. But yeah, we're looking at those options, and we'll have, if this continues forward, we would have to have a resident. But that helps you at more than just the pool, right? That
Right.
helps you at the landfill. That helps you at the golf course. So that's a more universal thing that we're looking at. But we are looking at that, exploring that, and what our options are. And we're trying to keep the impact on our citizens to a minimum.
I'm okay with what Councilwoman Flores said as far as that percentage, but I don't want to see it go to a need change again. I think we need to stick to the even dollars because that's that's a disaster at the gate trying to get in.
It makes a disaster for me collecting cash too. So I appreciate that. Going back to Councilmember Flores, what was the suggestion you made there? You wanted a more set percentage. So if I'm doing a 150% increase, you would support all fees need to be 150% higher than
I'm
whatever
not
the
saying if
residential.
150 is the right number. I was just suggesting that there was a little bit more consistency. Maybe the accountant in me is saying those numbers should be. I should be able to multiply
I need more
any of
guidance.
those
That's a little,
Safford rates
that's a little
by
too vague for,
50%.
I need more guidance than that. So
No, but no, I agree with, I don't want to collect 50 cents, whatever dollars and 50 cents. I imagine that's more difficult. So no, I'm okay with, I kind of wonder though, if you're going to collect the data, do we wait until the next season? Allow the rate structure to stay as is, collect the data, and the next season follow up on what that needs, what are going to be the appropriate rates.
definitely there's always a prudency in waiting, right? But I think what we've put together here is a decent plan. Again, introducing mostly this non-residency rate is the biggest impact of it. But again, our goal is to break that $62,000, the same number that we do every year. So we're hoping, but again, I can't guarantee usage, utilization. But ultimately, you paid $1.8 million back in 2007 for a facility, and you pay a lot to operate it. So do we want to continue to only recover 25%? I don't know. We gotta get more data. We got to get fees increasing, decreasing. It sounds like, I don't know where you guys are on that. Is 25% recovery a number? Is it wait for that study that John talked about? A lot of different options. So
Well, I said the last one was my last, so I apologize for fibbing.
we'll hold you
Just
to that.
Just a comment on that. I'm still not an expert on where all the money comes from for the different things that we fund. But when we say we paid $1.8 million, that came from, I'm assuming, mostly taxpayer money
No.
anyway. So they paid for the,
General taxpayer dollars, correct. That
Right.
you could have used on fire, police, everywhere else, but you decided
Right.
that a pool was important in 2007.
right. But the point being that the taxpayers made those improvements. So
Correct.
we don't, it's just worth
Worth
factoring
reiterating.
into the, yeah,
City of Stafford.
exactly. Yes, to be even more specific. And we're not, yeah, and that's being reflected in the numbers. The fact that we're not raising a lot of, in fact, we're not raising any of the city of Safford fees, correct? Residents.
That loss of the discount for the $1.25 night swim, I guess you could consider
Yeah,
that
but-
an increase.
right. But
And then
basically, no.
the swim lessons are definitely going up $10.
Right.
I mean, I guess swim team's going up $15. So
I think you're on the right track.
I do too.
We have to do it.
So should we
Find out
bring
what's
back
happening.
we'll bring back an action item at the next meeting to go forward?
I just have one more comment. For the non-Safford schools, the end of year school parties. I know you said for this year it wouldn't go into effect, so it wouldn't affect them, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think the end of year school party, we should allow the kids to come at the $2, whether they're Safford or non-Safford. I think, some of the other cities, towns don't have a pool. And that's something that I think the kids look forward to. And
And
that's
a
my
fee
opinion.
increase doesn't necessarily mean they won't come. It just means they have to pay more.
Right.
So
Just my opinion.
That probably didn't get put into this year's budget, so they don't have it. If it's being paid
So
by the
you-
school.
You want to keep all the schools like it was?
Right. It's just the end of year party. It's a one-time entry for them every year.
Yeah, the whole
That's it.
school.
Yeah. I
So
would
if you
just.
don't make your point for sure, they won't bring it back and show it to you. So if you want it brought back, you got to tell.
I think this gives enough time to plan, though. I mean, you could see that, they're going to pass their 2026 budget along with ours. This would be taking effect next summer. So they could plan for this increase just as much as we could plan for the increase. So
And
I
I'm
think it
just-
gives them plenty of time.
I'm just one opinion. I don't know what others feel about that, but that's just mine.
So basically, with the direction you're taking, I think you're doing fine. I hope you stay on it. We have to come up with,
So to clarify, I need to put a notice of intent. We have to post it. We'll put a message on Facebook about what we're doing by the end of this week. And then that starts that 60-day time clock to start advertising the rates as you see it in your packet tonight. no changes. We're going to advertise those rates. We're going to listen for comments over the next 60 days and see what people have to say. And then on April 28th, we're going to make a final vote where we can make changes at that point. We can't add a fee that wasn't already there. So I guess I need to know more information on, there was a talk about discount, a multi-person discount. If we want to add that, my chance to add that is by the end of this week. I need to put that in here and say we're adding one more fee possibility just so that we're safe on April 28th and we want to enact that. We could just delete it on April 28th and say we decided not to go forward on that. Is there any appetite for a multi-family swim lesson discount? So if you have more than 2 children, you start to get 50% off or something like that. Again, I don't know the effects of any of this. This is just, what do you see as fair and what do you see as not fair?
If we start giving family discounts for this, it'll get bigger.
So just stick with the fees the way we have it. This will be our first year. If we see that swim lessons have dropped, we might want to talk about some of those ideas in 2027.
Right.
So next year, when we talk about the same fee again, we'll bring up, here's how we did, here's how we could do better.
I think the key to it too is not just posting these new fees and putting it in the paper, wherever you put it. We gotta educate the public on it. Every different way, Facebook or whatever all that stuff is. On, our utility bills, we have to let the people know.
So did we want to do the school change though, where all the schools pay the same? Is that one? Because I heard a couple people say they kind of were on board for that. Yeah, so is that okay if we do make that one change in what we?
So that would be just $300 across the board, regardless of what school you go to, it's $300. It's still an increase for everybody because it was $250. It'll be $300 across the board.
Is that okay with everyone? Is that a change where we want to just make that equal? Looks like we're getting enough nods, so
Right.
we'll
Okay.
make that one change for the school.
And again,
so we'll make it even.
April 28th, you can still, because it's in there already, you can already make that change, right? It's already been increased, so you're just saying, hey, we changed our mind, we want to go back to 400.
So yeah, if you post it as is, we could still,
You could still make that change, yeah.
okay.
So post it as is and think about that change going through April 28th. Remember to answer your phones. Yeah, you have to do the intent to post by the end of this week, the 27th of this week. No, this means your intent to do it, and then on April 28th, you'll adopt whatever the final fees are. And your one restriction there is you can't add a fee that you didn't already put in your intent, and you can't, you can increase because you're already increasing, you just change that increase to even higher. So you've already posted that you intend to increase that
Check
fee,
'cause that
so.
doesn't sound right. Why would you post it and then change it at the end? You would then have a fee you adopt that wasn't posted. Bill, do you have an opinion on
Clarification on
that?
that?
So if we post fees for 60 days, I'm assuming the
Can't
fees
raise
that
it.
are posted are the ones that need to be adopted.
Yes. Thanks, sorry, I had to unmute
Yeah.
my mic. Yes.
Yeah, so whatever you post.
So it'd be
is
a
what-
cap.
yeah,
So leaving it at 400 at least give us that option going into the 28th.
This is the end of your school party one you're looking at, right? Because it just has a per person.
Yeah, the per person.
Yeah, it's the very last line
Oh, yeah,
item.
sorry, $2 per person rather
Okay.
than $5 per person. Sorry, I was
Okay.
looking at the reservation.
So that one, we're gonna make the same across the board for all schools.
Right.
So $2 across the board.
And other than that, we're good. Okay.
I don't think that whole family swim lesson thing is a deal because, I mean, the year that admission fees went from 25 to 50 cents, which was catastrophic to my budget, that year I did swim lessons. The following year, my sister did. The following year, my brother did. I mean, it's an age thing, you don't, very seldom you take a whole family through swim lessons the same year. I don't think that'll be something we need to deal with.
Or your whole family of 14 people at whatever that great price is. Yeah. Immediate family over 10. Yeah, my wife is one of those families.
I like where we're at for right now.
One change to the bottom. Any other comments or suggestions? Thank you for your consideration tonight. Have a good night.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 3, fire station options in fiscal year 2026 capital improvement plan. John?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we'll have a couple of individuals who will be participating in this. I'm going to kind of give some background on how we got here. This discussion really started last budget cycle. So with that being said, this is a request for Mayor and City Council to conduct a work session regarding potential options for the provision of fire services. Strategic goals include quality of life, which is public safety in this case, and then infrastructure and development, and maintenance, which is buildings. Background, the City of Safford in its FY23 budget cycle had planned for a 2026 capital project to construct a new fire station on Central Avenue on the south side of the train tracks at the current library annex location. However, due to a lack of any substantive information regarding the project costs or any thorough needs assessment, the project was removed. The removal of the project was part of an ongoing effort to streamline the CIP, which included the removal of projects that did not have sufficient background information to support them. The $5 million budget that had been carried over repeatedly in the City of Safford CIP documents was outdated, likely insufficient, given recent inflationary trends, and simply did not meet standard. After its removal, staff began discussing and considering the basis for the overall need for a fire station. These discussions became even more important as the library staff had put in for a capital project on the site previously earmarked for the site of the new fire station. That project was also removed until more progress could be made regarding the possibility of a fire station on that site. Current fire station was originally built in the 1950s and has had numerous remodels and expansions. Former municipal court building is currently used for storage by the clerk's office and could be integrated into the fire station for additional space needs. And then key aspects of the current station that need to be addressed are as follows. One restroom for 31 volunteers and former firefighters and guests. No locker room for men or women volunteers. No decontamination facilities for post-fire cleanup. Laundry drainage is not functioning. No floor drains in vehicle bays for vehicle water tank leaks. Height restrictions on southern bays limit vehicle options. Vehicle and bay storage is at capacity. Leadership's office is not connected to the station, and training space is inadequate. Under the analysis, in light of the history, discussions for any new fire station should be based on need. Generally, fire station construction is based on increases in calls for service or increasing coverage areas. Neither of these issues are something the City of Safford or the fire district face. That is not to say that coverage areas are not large. It simply means that a new fire station, regardless of location, is not going to have a significant impact on response times. Equipment seemed to be the most pressing issue driving the desire for a new fire station, i.e. the ability to fit future vehicle purchases in the current facility. There are also issues with the overall utility of the current space relative to need. In light of these considerations, it does not appear that a new fire station is needed, since several concerns can be addressed in a more cost-effective and comprehensive manner. The result has been a collaboration with the city's new fire chief and staff. Ideas that have been brought forward include the following. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Patrick Anderson, our new fire chief, because any of the ideas that are here were the results of conversations with him. Working with him and the finance director, we've had some really, really good conversations. Again, this is a work session, so the intent of staff is not to eliminate the possibility that we build a fire station. It's just that the work and the time that we put in put us in this position. So I'd like Mr. Anderson to be able to present some of those concepts to you, and then, of course, we're open for discussion.
Well, before he gets going, can I straighten out some of the history? Because it's not exactly like you said.
Please do.
When it first started out, where we were going to build the station, the talks of it was Yard 2. That's on the other side of the block. We didn't even have the possession of the property, the annex building, Couts and Son building, the church, or the parking lot. All we had was Yard 2 and the alley. That's where we were looking for a possible fire station. We went ahead and purchased the rest of it and then got the rest of the block. That was the first site we talked about. And the monies for that, after we finished paying for the police station, we were going to start concentrating on the fire station with the funds we had from that. and which dealt with when we made the trade with the county, putting in the water, the influent water all the way over there. The only hiccup we had with Yard 2 is that Mr. Henry would have to find another place for his equipment. But the first site was not the annex building. That's
Yeah,
not,
I don't think I said it was. I think I said that's where we left off last year.
okay, but that's not where, I hope we don't continue with, that's where we're gonna build it for sure. We still have to talk about it.
Yep.
Okay, so Yard 2 is where we talked about doing it first. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Like City Manager Ellis said, I've worked closely with him and the Finance Director and even Public Works Director, Mr. Henry, on figuring out some solutions for some of the issues that I see with our fire station, our training facility, and some of our equipment that we have. We've listed out a couple possibilities. What I'm looking at is doing a study on the station that we have to figure out if there's a way we can incorporate the needs that we need now, maybe some an additional bay to hold our bigger equipment, a laundry facility, showers, locker rooms, more than one toilet, bathrooms, meeting rooms that are more accessible to the public, and that. And so we've taken or looking at the money that was set aside for bathroom models this year. That it's not going to happen to have a study done to figure out if it's possible, maybe to keep our station where it's at, and maybe more cost effective for us and the taxpayers, which will leave us money to start upgrading some of our equipment that's fallen out of date. I have two engines and a tender that are past its life use, 25 years plus, that need to get replaced, that we're working on. Worked with the finance director on a plan to get our equipment back up, a 10-year plan on that. And then we also have our training facility that was built back in 1980 that really hasn't been modernized since then. And fire tactics have changed a lot since then. So I'd much rather see spend maybe a little bit less money on the station, get it to our needs right now. That'll keep us going for the next 10, 15 years, and get our training facility up so that naturally we can have a better capabilities of training. Any questions?
You mean the training, we still in work session, right?
Yes.
You mean the training facility north of town,
Correct, across the river.
putting monies into that?
Yes, and we're looking at funding that mainly with grant money.
That was gonna be my next question, Chief. I didn't know if we grant money or if we also had support with the fire district, since it would be a training facility for the whole valley, I would think, and a couple of counties.
Correct. It would. We're looking at a region, making it more of a regional training facility. I've had talks with our fire district. I'm waiting for guidance from you guys to pursue with the Thatcher and Pima and Fort Thomas fire districts to try to get all of us in on it, because it's naturally, we have the facility already. Let's make it a regional one because we all need one.
That'd be sweet, like that. But which direction to put the monies? Upgrade your current one, which you said maybe 15 years would be nice, especially if it was built where the city could take it over for more offices when you move to the new one for city staff.
I think anything's possible with enough money.
Because I was, okay, the other chief, for a while we had time because we weren't going to need it. We have a new chief, and now we need it. I don't mean desperately need it. You initiated, start thinking about it, which is what we needed. No doubt about it, because all these things take time.
Well, one of my biggest issues I face right now is, like I said, we have engines that are due for replacement, and half of our building is small, so we're ordering in engines that don't quite fulfill all our needs. So if we can figure out a way to remodel what we have and add some more bays that are bigger, we're getting in the equipment that fits all of our needs, not half.
So would you be looking at taking the current fire station and obviously going up? Because I don't see any room to go out to give you bigger bays, so maybe the management and things like that on the top, laundry, that type of thing?
With the talk with Lance and that we were looking at removing my office, which is over on the north side right now, and you'd add additional bay, basically that direction, and then move the office into the old magistrate court. So basically move our meeting room and offices over to the magistrate court, then changing our meeting room into locker room, shower, bath facilities, and then possibly taking down our tower behind and incorporating that area into maybe a laundry facility for washing our fire gear.
So part of the plan is that we'd like to repurpose some of the funds that were originally budgeted this year for doing the bathrooms. And we've already had some conversations with a design consultant, which would be able to come in, look at the building, do an assessment on the needs, space needs, and any renovations in the building. So we would be able to bring back for you a plan. And at that point, then you could look at it and say, okay, what are we looking at? So I think we put $550,000 in this year's budget, and I believe the finance director redistributed all of the capital projects that we're talking about, but it may be a bigger number. So do we get to a point where the number's so big that it doesn't make sense? So again, we'll have a design consultant come in, look at those needs, working with the staff, and then we can bring back to you someone who's actually done an assessment of the building and then can really give you an idea, lay it out and show you, okay, here's what we plan on doing and here's the needs that we're meeting. So that would be part of our request, would be initially to repurpose some of those existing funds that we're not going to use this year on the bathrooms, use those for a design consultant, then we can come back and show you those designs and then have a better idea of price, and then you can make a
Comment?
We're gonna need a new fire station. There's no doubt about it. So I don't want to say, let's limp along until we get a new one. If this will work and the chief feels that it'll work, I'm willing to look into it, but can we fix that plumbing in there? I'm hoping we can. I guess we'll find out.
That's a legitimate
Yeah.
position. So the position may still be that as we look at this, it may be that, no, I think we should build a new fire station. So that's still on the table. It's something that we should be thinking relative to the plan that's being presented.
And as soon as you tell me how much we still owe on the police department, we'll know how much we can go forward. Because that's what we were gonna do, take that monies we were paying and move it over to the fire department.
So on the police station, we did in 2016, we borrowed $2.5 million. We've made, 9 payments on it, so we're probably in the neighborhood of $1.8 million still owed on the police station.
And we have been setting aside money, so anything left over on the property tax that we don't pay on the police station has gone into a fund to go toward the fire station. Those funds can be used for this as well, if council decides to do that. But we're about, what, 400,000?
Yep, no, it's actually closer to 5 we're looking at today.
So almost 500,000 has been set aside for the new fire station, but could also be used for this as well, if that's the direction.
Troy Bingham, as your finance director, I'll take the last bit of this presentation before we finish up. So can we afford everything we're talking about here? So I've left you some documents. They were supposed to be attached to the packet. My fault, they didn't get there. So I did distribute them out, and they will be part of the minutes of the packet. So this document I have before you today right now is our vehicle replacement plan. I think the city, like I've said in previous meetings, in here a year, the city was very forward-thinking in getting a vehicle replacement fund started, and we actually had a lot of these trucks funded. They just weren't keeping up with the price of fire apparatus. Fire apparatus has increased dramatically from what it cost every year, and the increases are more than what you see in inflation. So this fund, I have $1.2 million. You don't see that number on here. I'm just telling you verbally. We have $1.2 million set aside for our very first truck. So we can definitely afford our very first truck. You see is $866,000. If we're proposing in our new fiscal 26 budget is to increase that motor pool fee in the fires budget, you're going to see that as one of the biggest increases this year, is to take that up to $683,000. It used to be about $200,000. So this is a $400,000 increase per year, which would be shared with the fire district. And this would allow us to get on a cash basis. I could afford all of the vehicles that you can see here. Over the next 15 years, we could individually replace these on the dates that I've set in this schedule. You'll see that the ladder, which is pretty new right now, but in 2039, it'll be up for replacement, is going to be $3.4 million. So we believe if we set aside $683,000, again, it might be tweaked with inflation over time, but $683,000 for the next 15 years, and we can replace every vehicle apparatus we have in the fire station and keep it current and up to its useful life. So we can definitely afford the vehicle replacement plan. That's not a big deal. What you see before you also is the CIP that we've introduced for this year. If you compare that to last year's CIP was pretty minuscule. We didn't have a lot. We had a restroom remodel for $30,000, which City Manager Casella has talked about repurposing that money this year. We'll come back to you in another meeting and have an item where we actually take that CIP project and say, okay, we're not going to do restrooms, but we're going to go do an assessment of the building. And we want to get that started as soon as possible so that we can know how much that renovation is going to cost, like he talked about. So that project is not in your packet. What you're seeing is the next 5 years. Like City Manager Casella pointed out, Patrick has been, as a new chief, has brought a new life to the budgeting process for fire. He makes my job very tenuous at times. So he brings new ideas, and I have to find ways to make them happen. So he's brought you 5 new projects you can see in your packet. Again, one of them being that $30,000 study, first of all. $3 million training facility, again, shared with our partners in the Valley and a heavily grant funded. If that grant didn't happen, then that project wouldn't move forward, but at least we need to get the partnerships growing in the Valley to get the study or to get a design done or implement an idea that we can actually go out and get grant funding. So we have to have more than just optimistic plans. We've got to have plans that we can actually take to a grant and say, if you give me $2.5 million, I can build this facility. So we need to get a little bit of seed money to get that started so that we can get to that level at least. We might never finish the facility, we might never get the grant, but at least we've got plans out there for if any funding does become available. And regional fire stations, we do see a lot out there, to be honest with you. Regionalism is a good thing in any grant. Anytime you regionalize, all of a sudden you raise to the top of the list. So getting Town of Thatcher, Town of Pima, the county, Fort Thomas Fire Department, getting all those together and saying, hey, we want to train together and we want to have our firefighters know what to do in a case of a fire and feel confident, that would be our justification for that project. Again, moving on, the renovation, we just put a number in here for a start, $550,000. We don't know. That assessment will tell us more about page 3. FR 2701 would be that renovation project. And again, it wouldn't even start until 2027. So we're starting to think out into the future what we need. And then we've also put in here for 800 megahertz radios. The fire station has had analog radios that are about at their useful life. They can last a few more years. We do have some options going forward on this, so we just wanted to make sure that we plan ahead for a $236,000 replacement of all their radios so that they can communicate inside of a structure and they can communicate outside of a structure between themselves and between trucks and with dispatch. The last thing is self-contained breathing apparatuses. They bought these, they have a 15-year useful life, and they are coming up on their 15 years in 2029. So we still have time to plan for this. So knowing this now, we can set aside money to save $412,000 to replace those SCBAs. So when they do go into fires, they have the proper breathing apparatus and they can actually breathe. So having this plan together, we are fully confident, as you can see, we'll come next week with our fund balance and revenue analysis, that the general fund can afford what Patrick has put here with cash. No borrowing any whatsoever right now. If that building number changes, there might be some borrowing proposed, but $500,000 is currently fundable by cash. The vehicle replacement plan, if we increase the operating budget and show that increased contribution to the plan, will be fully funded by cash, no borrowing whatsoever. So we can do everything that our new fire chief has talked about tonight if we just start planning ahead today. Sorry.
Fine.
Councilmember Brunner.
When I'm thinking of this, Stafford is growing. We're not going to retract any. We're only going to get bigger. So I think it makes sense to go forward with the new building because they're gonna need new trucks, they're gonna need bigger spaces. And if we can pay for all this with cash, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm comfortable doing a loan for a fire station and putting more assets towards the fire station than I am another park or something like that. I think the citizens would be more behind something that they really need. So I don't know that, I don't feel comfortable putting the money into the old building. If we have the money to do cash for all this, fine, but have we looked at what the new building, at financing that type of thing? Because we're gonna need it. We're just kicking a can down the road.
I think one of the options is we go through that assessment. That $30,000 assessment is going to do a lot for us. That one of the options that they should be bringing out of that is if we built a new facility, what would it cost so that we can make that comparison? Right now, we're just speaking hyperboles. We don't know facts. We don't know what the truth is. We need that assessment from a third party that says, here's what you really need. Here's what it's going to cost. And if you want new, here's what it's going to cost. And at that point, let's make an educated decision. But I think, as you can see, we staggered this plan. You're not funding this all in one year. We're gonna put aside $30,000 this year. Right now, in the fiscal year I'm in, I'm gonna set aside enough to get the training facility started in 2026, but we're not gonna really move forward on a lot of this until these big questions are answered. We can fund that with cash, get these big questions answered, and then we know if this plan grows, if it shrinks, if it changes. Right now, we just want to get a plan out there and tell you, here's what I can fund with cash. But I think there's stopping points along the way that we can say, hey, hold on, this makes no sense to dump $7 million into a facility that if we can go build a new one for 7, right?
So how long would it be until we have that study? Because we talk about studies, but if we're talking 6 months down the road, a year, I would like to see something a little more.
So what's great about our purchasing
Sooner.
policy is professional services under $60,000, which is 30, we can just award. So we are a public works director. The company that took on the design of our police station actually does this for rural communities. So they did Benson's recently. So we've engaged them to try to find out what a cost would be for an assessment. And that might be the company that we would choose in this and quickly get on the ground. And by the end of the budget process, we might know what a roundabout number is. Again, that's probably optimistic. Maybe we'll know by fall, but at least sometime this year, we'll know what the big answer is. If we get started as soon as possible with getting the budget changed. So I need your support next council meeting, but you can't vote today.
You say the fire district is gonna help us. Are we sure they have the reserves to do that?
They are a separate entity that has their own taxing authority. My understanding is we have always collected excess funds compared to what we've asked for. Patrick has floated this idea past them, I believe. Let Patrick talk to that and what their impressions were.
I had a meeting with them last month and touch base on as far as our vehicle replacement goes, and then the training facility, and we didn't really have any numbers on a station or station remodel and that, but they are aware the direction that we're looking at. And I also have another meeting with them tomorrow to discuss whatever the direction that we need to go from here. One other thing to keep in mind with these engine replacements right now, if we ordered something tomorrow, an engine will take 4 years to get here. So this isn't the time in the past when we could order within a budget year. So a tender's 3 years, an engine's 4 years, and so that's why we came out with this 10-year plan on the replacement because it's something we got to think farther ahead than 1 year at a time.
I'm just also concerned because the neighbor town just got monies for a fire station. I don't know how much they're gonna get out of the fire district too. I'm just concerned that they have the monies for our dreams.
Separate fire district. There's actually 4 individual fire districts inside Graham County. They're completely separate from us.
Oh,
We have our own fire district, which is the city of Safford, and the surrounding area is its own fire district. So their tax collection is completely different than the town of Thatcher, than the town of Pima, and the town of Fort Thomas, or the incorporated area of Fort Thomas.
so if you have a study, you can find out if they got the money. Maybe.
They're a taxing entity. You could ask for public records for them to tell you how much money they have.
Know how that goes.
And they are able to increase their rate, but they need an idea of what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they do have some in reserves right now because we haven't really asked them for anything over the past year. So But depending on what the study comes back on building a station or remodeling what we have, the cost on what that's going to cost. The rest of the stuff, the equipment and that, we're pretty nailed down on what the cost is on that. The station's really the unknown at this point.
I forgot how much you said we're paying a year for the police station and when we're gonna be done.
It started at 160,000 in principal each year with about $20,000 of interest. It goes up $5,000 every year in principal, and it goes up to $5,000 every year in interest. So yeah, it'll take we're 9 years into a 15-year loan, so another 4 or 6 years, sorry. And then, yeah, it's increasing every year, but again, nothing that's dramatic enough to be panicked about.
So it wouldn't do us any good to pay it off?
Oh, it's a little bit more. 2034 is what you tell me.
We couldn't pay it off?
You could. We have cash reserves. We could do technically with some of these loans, we'd have to look at the provisions that we signed back in 2016 to know sometimes can't make an early payment without paying the interest. So there's no point in making that early payment. So
But you'll look into it.
we'll look into that if you're interested in, and we'll have our one-on-one conversations next week with each individual of you guys. So as we go through those kind of things, bring up those kind of questions, and we'll put them down and make sure we get back to you during the budget process.
My memory says that council direction, when we did that police station, was to try to get it paid off in 7 years and then build a fire station. And that has not been the direction finance has taken, but that was the direction the council wanted at the time, was, if I remember it right. Isn't that how you remember it, Arnold?
That's kind of what I said
thought
at the
we were-
beginning here.
I
So
thought we were gonna pay extra on that loan and get it paid off, and that is not happening.
Like I said, next week or next council meeting 2 weeks from now, we'll go through revenues and fund balance. Those are great opportunities to see how much the general fund has in cash and what the opportunities are for that. So you guys can make decisions. There's definitely excess money in the general fund, what we're seeing right now. So
Sounds like that's being rat holed
What
instead
do
of
you
spent
think?
on the.
Go ahead, Emma.
No, I don't recall the exact conversation. I just remember we would utilize the excess in the property taxes and some excess revenues. And at the end of it, we would look at funding or investing in the fire station at the end of it, but I don't recall.
I think that's why the fire
Specifically,
station
but
was
I-
put 7 years out, because we thought we'd have the police station paid off.
And I'm aware of Councilmember Flores, we're actually restricting funds. Any money we collect in property tax in excess of the fire or the police station, we are restricting. And that's where that $500,000 of cash right now to help fund some of these plans. That's key to funding some of these plans. But again, you're going to look at the general fund funds more than just fire. It's police, it's parks, it's everything underneath the sun gets paid for by the general fund. So those are the kind of decisions you have to make as a council is what's your priorities? Where are we going? What do you see as
If you were
important?
to pay it off early, why would you set aside any property tax? Why wouldn't you just put the whole amount toward the paying off of the police
Mhm.
station?
That's
It
what
would
I
make no
thought.
sense to put money aside for a fire station if you wanted to pay the police station off in advance. So I don't remember that conversation either, but
Is that something you guys can go back? Because if that was council direction, shouldn't that be followed?
like I said, I don't remember that being a conversation. And if I'm putting money aside from property tax to put toward a fire station, wouldn't I just take that
When did
money and
that
pay
come
down on the
in,
police
though?
station
Yeah,
right
that's
away?
That's kind of what I thought we were doing.
Yeah, but it wasn't. So, but again, we can do whatever you want. I just don't recall paying anything off in advance.
No, I don't recall.
And I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Just
I
how I
recall
remember it
7
didn't make it
years.
right.
But I mean, like I said, during the budget process this year, like there's going to be excess funds. If you decide that, you could say, let's pay off the police station this year. So let us have that presentation with you. Let that sink in for 2 weeks and decide what are the city of Safford's priorities. And then you guys can make those. That does change my mind as far as what I can fund on other things. So I need to know sooner or later if that's our intent. But right now, that is helping us ease that cost of that police station over time. Take advantage of that to the best of our ability. The interest rates were super low when you did the rate. So it's not a bad thing to let that be, and then we'll find other pots of money for fire stations and other needs around the city. So
Can I ask another question on the fire training center upgrade? Are we going to go build what we think we need and then go ask the other departments what they think? Or if they want to buy into it, or are they going to get a say in from the foundation?
I have been working on this project for a little over 8 years and have all the local organizations, 19 organizations that would use this facility, and they've all seen the design plans for it. This facility will include a multi-story structure that police and fire can use. Search and rescue will have towers on it. They've all put their 2 cents in and what they may need extra off of the base model, and things have been adjusted on that. And it'll also have a classroom facility out there, so you can basically do your inside classroom stuff and then go right outside to the training facility, not doing something in town here in the library and then trying to go someplace else. But input has been gathered from the other organizations that have.
I just heard some hearsay at this point, but that some of them didn't feel like they'd been listened to, and they also are in excess of 30 minutes from here, and they're small departments that, you know, they can only send one or two guys at a time, so they can't drain their district to send them to training. So they were hesitant. Well, I think the scared part was, is this going to be a one-time thing, or are we going to have to kick in money every year? Because that's what they indicated to me they didn't have. So, you know, they might have some excess funds now, but they didn't know if they would have it later, and were they going to have to pay a fee to use it every time, or what? How was that going to play out? So I just wanted to bring that back to you so that you knew that you need to have a sit down with everybody in the room at one time before you finalize a plan and make sure everybody's being served if they're going to get in. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to do what you're doing, because you obviously been working on it a long time, but I just am hearing concerns and just wanted to make sure you knew they existed.
Councilmember McGuire, I've heard today some concerns coming from the Fort Thomas area and PM area, and no, they have not really been included in on the how we're going to fund this, and until I get direction from you guys, I'm not positive on myself how we're going to fund this over time. I do believe with a regional facility that is supporting 19 different organizations, I think the maintenance support and stuff on it should be able to be grant funded most of the time. I do have plans in with Jace at Public Works on the classroom facility and that, to get some type of numbers back on, one, what it's going to cost to build, and then theoretically off of square footage and the other square footage of the city buildings, what it's going to cost to maintain on a yearly basis. The training structure is, unless something catastrophic happens, just the normal maintenance on it is about $15,000 every 5 years. So I think, you know, once we can come up with how much the overall cost is going to be and the maintenance on it, then I can figure out if Fort Thomas puts in X amount of dollars, if that's just a lifetime fee for it, or if it's something that we have to charge on a. My intent is not to have it on a charge base yearly for people. I want everybody to be able to use it, and us to figure out either through grant funding how to support it throughout the years.
I had another couple things I want to say, and just because I like to hear my own voice, but the last 4 vehicles I think that we've bought, 3 of them had to be smaller than we really wanted because of the size of the bays. The 2 twins that we bought, I think they were built for somebody else, but their mirrors are so close in that you can't use them, and they barely, well, sometimes they don't make it in the bay. But we are in need of larger bays, at least a few. And it is true that those trucks were slated to be replaced a long time ago, some of them. And there's one especially that's got demons. I don't know. It's got to go. And so we do need to get on this, because we're getting further and further behind. I'm agreeing with Patrick 100% that we need to spend some money over there, and I don't think a station is the priority at this point, but it is going to have to be considered. And I'd also like to say that in the nineties, the federal government funded a study that came up with a site, and it fell apart for legitimate reasons, but it's still the best place to put a station, and it's not at the library annex. I think we need to go back and look at that and figure out if it can be done. It benefits us in 2 or 3 different ways, and I realize why it fell apart, but rules change, especially right now. I think it might be a doable thing now when it wasn't 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 25 years ago. It might be doable under this current regime. I'd like to suggest that we look at that before we start spending money on the 900 block of Central or Fifth Avenue.
So, just as a recap, so I think that the equipment purchases and the kind of the other items outside of the fire station, we have support for those items. Sounds like is there support for us to do an assessment of the current location in terms of its usefulness as going forward to some degree, or do we just want to jump to, hey, we want to build a new fire station and the assessment should be where and how much, right? And put a plan in place to do that fire station. So the equipment portion, I think we're good. The station, we're kind of, do we want to look at the existing one and renovate for a period of time, or do we want to just go directly into let's do an assessment on a new location and a new facility and see what the number comes out?
Councilwoman Brantner said something that made sense, is we're gonna need a station. Let's just go. But we don't know where this town's gonna grow. And that makes more difference in where you build a station than anything, because the people you're serving have to be within so many miles of that station. The current station where it's at is benefiting Thatcher by 1.5 miles. It really could go 1.5 miles in the opposite direction and benefit our own district and our own people and quit benefiting them so much. And that's what that study was based on. At that time, you had to be north of the railroad tracks. I think that has changed, which has allowed us to go south of. But I'd just like to go back to that study and review it and see if it has any validity before we have another study. But
The study that you're referring to in terms of the alternate site.
correct.
So we want to revisit that. So are we saying let's hold off on the assessment for the current building and revisit
No.
the idea of?
No,
new-
I think that the current
You wanna
building
do that.
has to be upgraded and get us to the point where, I'd like to get us to the point where the police station's paid for and we can pay cash for a fire station. I mean, that was the original plan. Whether anybody in current administration remembers that was what came from the diocese at the time.
So when you say cash,
Oh.
are you saying if we pay off the police station, we're in a position to debt service the fire station? Because I don't think you're going to go all in on cash.
No, I don't remember exactly, but I know we weren't gonna talk about a fire station until the police department was
Right,
paid
but I'm,
for.
I'm thinking that you were saying we would pay down the police station quickly to put us into a position to do the fire station, but the fire station itself would still be debt service to some degree.
That's fine, and I don't think we need it today.
Right.
But
So
I
we
wanna
should-
concentrate on getting the money spent and get that stuff paid off so we can jump on this and do it right.
So we still do the assessment on the existing building just to get a sense of that. We can look into the alternate site. We can also look into paying off the police station in advance, and we can add
Well,
those.
I wish we had been paying that money and getting rid of that interest all this time, because it's been sitting,
Well,
I don't know what it's
happened was
been-
we didn't pay it, so it went into the reserve, so it's still sitting there.
well, did it gain as much interest as we paid? That was.
Probably.
Probably more.
It might have.
Probably. But anyway, we'll take a look at that and we can kind of revisit based on the current reserve amounts and see if paying off the police station, because it's not a huge number. It's not like we paid $10 million for the police station. So it sounds like the plan that we presented, we want to go forward with, but we also want to look at the alternate site and we want to look at the possibility of paying the police station off ahead of time. Does that sound right?
At the time, we didn't think we could pay the debt service on both.
Right,
That was
right.
the
No, I
reason for
remember that. I remember that. Okay, so that sounds like a plan. So the plan as presented, we're still going forward with, we'll repurpose money, do the assessment of the existing facility, but we will look at the alternate site and we will look at any kind of advanced payoff of the police station, barring any kind of prepayment penalty that might be built into the debt itself. So we'll look at that, those two additions to the plan presented. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 10. We'll close the work session and reconvene back into our regular meeting. Okay, number 11, the minutes of February 10th, 2025. Everybody have a chance to review them?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes from February 10th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of February 10th, 2025. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Item number 2, the Airport Terminal Design Award.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to approve the expenditure of $116,000 for the completion of the design for the proposed airport terminal building. The strategic goals for this project are growth and development and financial management. Background: during the 2024 budget process, Council approved $175,000 in funding to design a new terminal building at the airport. In September of this year, staff began design work on the terminal building through its on-call contract with Dibble Engineers. Dibble Engineers and its subconsultant, Michael Taylor Architects, have completed a conceptual design for the terminal, and that design was presented to City Council for their feedback on January 27th during a work session. Staff plans to apply for grant funding for construction of the terminal building in the summer or fall of the next fiscal year through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Airport Terminal Program, or BILATP. In order to maximize the ranking of the city's grant application for this competitive grant, a shovel-ready design is key. And I have included here, and I apologize because the size is rather small on the screen, I've included a breakdown of the overall project budget just to give some clarity, because I know that was a point of concern during my work session presentation. So currently, the design phase 1 has been completed. That was funded with general fund funds that are in the current budget year at the amount of $59,000. What I'm asking for tonight is the ability to expend the remainder of those funds to complete the design. And then if we do move to construction, that would be funded with grant funds. Those grant funds are matched on that grant, would actually be covered in majority by the design that we're funding. So we can roll the amount that we've already expended on the design into a match for a federal grant. And the state would also kick in. They would split the match with us, essentially, just like most of our federally funded airport projects. And inclusion, staff's recommending that Mayor and Council authorize the airport manager to issue a purchase order to Dibble Engineers in an amount not to exceed $116,000 for design services through 100% submittals. And this purchase order will be issued under the terms of the airport's existing on-call engineering and planning services contract with Dibble dated June of 2024. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Anybody? Questions?
Do you have to give them all the money before they do it?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Lopez, no. So this is a purchase order. So we pay them as they complete the design. There are phases through that, and they invoice us with all of our design projects. They invoice us through the process once they give us deliverables.
You talked about an invoice. I thought we were giving it all to them.
No, this would be for a purchase order. So this would just be authorizing that bulk expenditure. Basically, that's us saying we will expend no more than this amount, and then they invoice us through that purchase order.
Anybody else? An action item.
Mayor, I move that we approve design award to Dibbles Engineers in the amount of $116,000.
We have a motion and a second to approve the airport terminal design award. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Item number 3, Airport Strategic Business Plan Award.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to approve the expenditure of $88,600 for the completion of an airport strategic business plan. And this project has the same strategic goals of growth and development and financial management. During the 2024 budget process, Council approved $90,000 in funding to complete a strategic business plan for the airport. This plan will guide future development at the airport with a focus on moving the airport towards self-sustainability and increasing opportunities for economic development. So essentially, this is telling us what businesses we need to go after, what's the best fit for our airport, what's the best fit for our local economy, and how do we utilize the airport as an engine for economic development. So the airport strategic business plan will become a valuable resource in planning for future development at the airport. We'll develop a plan for market sectors that the airport should pursue, along with establishing infrastructure requirements to support that growth, guiding airport capital planning and development by current and future businesses at the airport. In this method, we plan well ahead of time. We develop a plan for how we're going to support those businesses that we're bringing in. We essentially don't bite off more than we can chew. And then staff is recommending that Mayor and Council authorize the airport manager to issue a purchase order to Dibble Engineers in an amount not to exceed $88,600 for planning services to complete the strategic business plan. And this purchase order would be issued under the terms of the airport's existing on-call planning and engineering services contract with Dibble from June of 2024. And I'll stand for questions.
Comments?
Mayor, I move that we approve an airport strategic business plan award to Dibbles Engineers for an amount not to exceed $88,600.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve airport strategic business plan award. All in favor? Opposed? Then we'll move on to item number 12. Number 1, Resolution R 25-009, a change to the fiscal 2025 compensation plan for a senior accountant / accountant.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As I promised in previous council meetings, I would bring any changes we make to the compensation plan because these are large, these could be large ongoing expenses associated with them. I wanted to make sure that there was some sort of strategic interaction with the council, that if we're changing a position, an FTE, from a certain title to another title, that we would bring that before council and we get it solidified in the form of a resolution. Tonight is a resolution for my office to change a open position that we currently have as an accounting specialist 1 as we go through our reorganization to a senior accountant / accountant. Again, the range would start with an accountant being the lower level position. If I could find a senior accountant, the salary range is including that. So this would be both an increase to my budget that we believe could be absorbed in current expenditures happening in the general fund. But at the same time, it's changing that 1 FTE from an accounting specialist 1 to a senior accountant / accountant. I turn the time back to council and mayor for any comments or suggestions.
Comment?
You know, we've added quite a few employees over the last few months. So I'm hoping we talk about that impact when we get into our one-on-ones and our budget. 'Cause I don't know how many we've added, 5 maybe?
New FTEs?
No, employees in general. We went from part-time, full-time, different things like that. All we've just added. And I want to make sure we can absorb that when we talk about budget because we're still going to need park people and we don't have a fully staffed water department. That's very important. So I certainly want to concentrate on that. I know it may not have nothing to do with what you brought forward, but it's still talking money.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Lopez, like I said, I want to be able, whenever we make these changes, they're not just mentioned in a meeting and not really acted upon. I want to be able to bring these type of resolutions when we are making those changes. So the very first one you pointed out was that full-time to or part-time to full-time at the landfill. We took that action in front of the council, so you're aware of that. This would be the second action I'm aware of for the year. You are right, open positions that aren't filled, those are approved in the budget, so we wouldn't bring those back necessarily, but we can give you an update in our one-on-ones next week about how we're doing on that and what plans we have going forward
Yes.
and how we can afford all that.
Yeah, we talked about what you're bringing in front of us. I just wanted to take advantage of it.
We look forward to your conversation.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution R25-009, a change to the FY 2025 compensation plan for a senior accountant.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution R 25-009. All in favor? Opposed?
This approves resolution number R 25-009, a resolution of the mayor and city council of City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, adopting a change to the fiscal year 2025 compensation plan for the finance accounting department.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 13, ordinance number 025-002. It's amendment to Title 13, Public Services.
So we're in a little bit of discussion about whether we needed to table this with the changes that were coming forward. And so we're going to have that discussion around whether the ordinance could go forward with its first read, even though the adopted policies will be in resolution. during the
Bill, if
second.
you're on the line, are you able to advise if we need to table this ordinance or not?
I think we should, well, I'd like to get John's view as well. I talked to Steve, I had sent him some comments, and then he called me back today, and there's some revisions that I think are minor. I think we can address whatever needs to be done on posting the fees consistent with your past practice. So I don't see anything substantive that could delay approving the first read, because there was nothing substantive in what my changes were to Steve. And whether or not how we post the Exhibit C is really an administrative function, and you could still approve the policy. It doesn't change the policy, so I would recommend approval. But John, I don't know, John, if you agree. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I guess my concern would be that I know that there's been concerns about changes that we make or don't make in some of the items that we bring. So there's no pressing issue from a time perspective. So I think
Okay.
I would prefer to make all the adjustments, bring it back clean, and make sure that we're all on the same page, since there's not a time issue.
Okay, thank you, John.
Mayor, I move that we table ordinance O25-002 first read.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table ordinance number 025-002, the first read. All in favor? Opposed? Good job.
Thank you.
Number 14, announcement of current events. Anybody?
Yes, sir. Current events. I don't know if Pastor Burke's parking issue got looked into.
We did address that. We got up a couple new handicap signs over there, and we'll restripe those stalls in front of there as we stripe this later this year. We did get the new signs up, though.
He'll be happy.
Yep.
Also, Mr. Seal from the Water Department had put out an invitation to us to go with him and check some of the water infrastructure and stuff. I don't know if anybody has answered that email for him. Last I spoke to him, he was still waiting on some answers. He said he would be willing to even do it on Saturday if anybody would want to go. So I'm hoping people will get back to him.
Reiterate, I hope you all have looked at your calendars and via set aside schedules with you each individually or together, a few of you, for next week for 5:30, I believe is the starting on each one of them. So if you can or can't make that, please let us know so we can move it. But we're have a full packed week where all of you are going to individually sit down with us in finance and city manager Casella, and we'll talk about our budget process and what your ideas are going forward. So
Can you give me an idea of about how long you expect that meeting to last?
forever.
Yeah.
It all depends on the questions that
It
you
depends
get.
on who you're in the meeting with.
We're trying, I mean, brevity is our goal, and we're trying to summarize high level. You'll notice that the budget has not changed that much, so we're going to give you the highs and lows. Really more talking about the revenues would be our focus. So we'll try to an hour tops.
I would say hour and a half.
I
So
have
hour and a half, because it,
scheduled them for 2 hours, so
yeah.
hopefully they stay within that.
And again, the finance director is correct that, you know, a lot of it's driven by questions. And the whole idea of the one-on-ones is to give council an opportunity to have a discussion on the budget, not necessarily in a public forum, so you could ask more in-depth questions and really dig in on it. So I would say, make use of that time, even if it goes a couple hours, but it really will be up to you and the questions that you ask. So I would say anywhere between an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah, well-
Also, I don't know about some of the CIPs that didn't make it. I had that question the other day. Some of them that didn't make it in, were we gonna get them?
Could you be more specific? I'm not
The
sure.
one, where they asked me, well, when would you like them? And I said, next week. But there's some of the CIP stuff that was presented maybe to you or to staff that wasn't shown to us.
I'm not aware of any except for one item, I think, which was a software item. Everything else, I think, flowed through, but off the top of my head, can you think of things that didn't make it?
I think you're thinking the same as us, but we'll follow up, and before your meetings, we'll make sure we have the answer that my deputy promised you.
Yes.
Yes. He said there was a few that didn't come through.
I think he over-exaggerated.
Well, I think what he was referring to is that there were some projects that he felt that were, that we should be doing at the pool that weren't necessarily ones we took out, they just were never given to us. So I think that it may be, those may be what he was referring to, some at the pool that maybe we didn't.
There he is.
Yeah. Oh, I
Oh.
didn't know you were still here.
Hello, here I am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, that's what I was alluding to, is there's some projects that I felt we should have had projects in the CIP that weren't presented, that we were trying to get into the CIP before you guys approved the final CIP. Those projects, there were no projects that we turned out of the CIP this year. The one that they might be alluding to, we actually decided that it wasn't a project. It was a software subscription instead. So.
Okay, so far.
Okay, then we'll move on. Any request for future agenda items? No. We'll move on to item number 16.
Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed?